In 1917, a very unusual performer was part of the show in the Sells Floto circus, which toured the US. The circus featured the hugely successful sideshow of a two-headed man. On both sides of the Atlantic, a widespread fascination with the exceptional body had inspired popular entertainment since the early 1800s. In many cases, this involved exploitation and even maltreatment of individuals with disabilities, and in others, enabled people of difference to earn a living and even achieve international celebrity and wealth. However, this particular performer had a curable medical condition which was being milked for every penny it could earn. The performer, Pascal Pinon, was touted as having a second head growing out of the top of what was termed his normal head. The upper head was somewhat smaller than the lower one, with features of the eyes, nose, mouth and ears having an apparently normal configuration. Of course, this sideshow, so-called freak, was a tremendous drawcard. Crowds would gather in front of the two-headed man's platform and gaze for a very long time. When it seemed that some skepticism as to the genuineness of the so-called living curiosity was emerging among the less credulous of the audience, the sideshow rouseabout would hurl a sharp word of command at the performer, who would toss back his head, the lower one. The upper head would accordingly tilt back and upwards, revealing an authentically fleshy, expansive neck. The joining of the upper and lower heads was thereby demonstrated, causing a resounding gasp in the audience. This was the convincing clincher, that toss of the head and view of a second neck between the two heads, creating a stir in the crowds. The viewing of the astonishing man was followed by an interesting and plausible talk about his unusual appearance. The man was said to have been a refugee who had followed Army General Pershing out of Mexico. Details were given of the man's life in the mountains of northern Mexico, where he had allegedly lost his small ranch when Pancho Villa's revolutionary raiders drove him towards the border. Finally, there would shuffle out onto the platform his humble and contented family of 7. All of these elements contributed to a highly astounding 10 minutes for an eager public. Newspaper reporters, educators, professional men, and even other show performers stared at the spectacle of the bizarrely deformed Mexican man with complete credulity. They observed the two-headed man carefully, walked around to view him from all angles, talked to him, puzzled and pondered over his appearance, then gave it up. However, they were never able to view the performer except for when he was on the platform. The sideshow producers made sure of that, because the two-headed man was not so convincing a phenomenon when seen from above. It was the highlight of the performance when, on a verbal signal from the presenter, the two-headed man would tilt back the upper head, revealing what appeared to be a neck, or the fleshy connection between it and his own skull. Entertainment historians agree that there is not the slightest doubt that the two-headed man was the greatest amusement deception of all time, greater than the Cardiff Giant archaeological hoax in 1869. The spectacle was a fake, but a clever one, based on one unfortunate man's debilitating illness. Pascal Pinon, born in 1889, was a member of a Texas railway section gang when the sideshow manager came across him. An immense benign cyst or tumour growing on top of his head attracted the professional interest of the showman. The talent scout recruited Pinon into his freak show, promoting him as the two-headed Mexican. In order to achieve this effect, the circus managers had a fake face made of wax, which was placed onto the growth. Its resulting appearance allowed the claim that Pinon had 2 heads. Some reports from that time indicate that the procedure was even more invasive. It was believed by some that the effect was created by an operation whereby a silver plate mask was surgically inserted into the tumour. The mask had been moulded to indicate eyes, ears and nose, and even a mouth with teeth set in an attempt to look natural. Accordingly, the face lacked animation, its mouth constantly static and its eyes blank and expressionless. However, this fault was explained in the rouseabout spiel. He would proclaim that Pinon had been able to see, speak and hear with his upper head until he had attained the age of 20. It was explained that this was when he had suffered a stroke, causing his face to stay immobile and the upper head to atrophy. It was extraordinary that this lie was accepted and believed by all classes of people. It seems that Pinon was certainly not a natural entertainer, and the bulk of his performance consisted merely of simply sitting and occasionally lifting his chin into the air on command. This was to better display the tuberous connection between his natural head and his small secondary one, and there is no doubt that the public fell for the authenticity of the optics, as they were unusually realistic for a fake. The deception was a welcome meal ticket for Pinon and his family, whereby, due to his unique deformity, he was able to display himself for a substantial amount of money and happily support his family of 7. However, the earnings bonanza of the sideshow company ended in Detroit when Pinon began to display symptoms of mental impairment. Doctors found that the silver plate was pressing up against his brain. The circus manager paid to have the enormous disfiguring tumour removed and saw Pinon discharged from the hospital looking like any other railroad worker again. Pinon and his family returned to Texas, where he resumed his previous work. Fortunately, during his 2 years of touring, the man had earned a modest fortune, as well as a massive attention and a travelling acquaintance with the United States and Canada. It is possible for a person to be born with 2 complete heads, the condition craniopagus parasiticus. This is a form of conjoined twins, which results in one head being upside down on top of the other. Perhaps a doctor in Pinon's audience might have pointed out that, uncharacteristically, his second head was oriented like his actual head. We can't be sure how healthy Pinon remained or how happily his life ended, as he passed away at the young age of 40 in 1929. However, his fame does live on and seems to have inspired works of literature and film and a cult musical following.